Hello there. What's going on, everybody? There's been a lot of news today for a Friday. Friday usually tends to be a day when they drop a lot of news. There are some bombshells today. A whole new game, a Lord of the Rings game. We're going to talk about that. Basically, end of life for Runewars. What does this mean for other games like that haven't gotten a whole lot of news, like Descent or Armada? What does this mean for all of those? We're going to talk about all of that stuff. We also want to remind you guys about my big giveaway going on right now for a Force FX lightsaber in the form of an Amazon gift card. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment. It's as simple as that, and you're entered to win. This is going to run all throughout February as well, so there's plenty of time left to enter that. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment to enter. All right, so let's talk about Runewars first. I played Runewars for a while. I covered it. I did some unboxings. I did some, I think, a battle report of it. I played it for a little while. Solid game. It did a lot of good things. They announced today the end of organized play for Runewars, which basically means the game is done. I do want to talk about how this doesn't really mean the game is dead. This means the game is only dead as far as people that insist new product constantly come out for it in order for it to not be dead. If you've got all the stuff for Runewars, there's nothing stopping you from continuing to play Runewars. If you are thinking about getting into Runewars, you may want to wait for this stuff to go on clearance, but you know, they may not. There may only be limited availability of the product, so there's nothing stopping you from getting into it. There's actually a pretty good amount of units and expansions that are available, and there's 4 different factions. So Runewars has done a lot of good stuff in that, you know, they had different factions. They had an essentials kit, so you didn't have to buy the original core set if you wanted to play one of the other factions that weren't included in the core set. Brilliant thing. Brilliant. It was this fantasy. It's in the world of Terranoth. It's their own IP, which is also brilliant from a lot of other reasons, because they have the flexibility to just release whatever they want. They don't have to worry about lore. Oh, we can't release a big cavalry unit for this faction because in the movies they didn't have one. They're not bound by anything like that. So you know, they're only bound by their own IP story, so they can really have a lot of freedom. You know, and this could have been a really great game. There were 2 things I think that hurt this game. The first one was the tray system. Now, the tray system some people liked. I actually thought it was kind of cool initially, but then when I started to play with larger trays, and what I mean by the tray system, you had all your minis that you're fighting. As you lose minis come off, but they have a tray, and so you're mostly affected when you lose a whole tray, and that's kind of how it works. I think it was a kind of an innovative, kind of cool system. Other games have used tray systems before as well. There's nothing against the tray system generally, but in this particular game, the tray is locked together in a kind of a difficult to lock and pull apart way. And for certain units, especially like for me, it was the spearmen. When I would try to pull a spearman tray out of a formation that, you know, when they had all been killed, pulling them out was difficult, and it would make the whole unit jiggle, and it was very clunky. So I think the tray system should have been redesigned a little bit. I would have liked for it to have been different, and I think other games like A Song of Ice and Fire, you know, have trays that just go together without having to interlock. Like this had this interlocking tray system, so you had to pull it out, and it was like jigsaw cut, and it was just didn't work for me. It was a clever idea. I think there could have been better implementation of it. That ultimately wasn't the thing that really stopped me from playing Runewars, though. I think the big thing that killed Runewars, at least for me, was Star Wars Legion. Same type of game. I mean, almost everything about Legion and Runewars are the same, except Legion was just better. Totally better. I mean, it was Star Wars, for crying out loud. Of course it's better, right? I mean, granted, I could have in theory played both, but also Legion, you just moved the leader, and then you put everybody else in cohesion, had a much better... You know, it didn't have that tray system. It had a much better, cleaner, simpler interface. And it used terrain. Like, Runewars had terrain, but it was just plastic cutouts, just like asteroids and X-Wing and stuff. So, you know, like, Legion was, like, took everything that Runewars had and made it better. You know, and now we know we're getting extra factions with Legion because at Gen Con they announced that the Clone Wars is also going to come to Legion. So Legion is also going to be getting 4 factions. Maybe even someday the sequel trilogy, and we'll get those factions as well. Maybe even a Scum and Villainy faction someday. Maybe even the Hutts. Maybe even, you know, we don't know. I don't think we'll get like 20 factions in Legion. I think it'll just probably be 4 and then maybe 6. That would, if I was guessing, I would say it'll probably cap out around 6. I don't know if we'll get any more. Although in theory we could get like Chiss at some point. Might be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind seeing non-aligned in that game. But before I get too far off topic, Legion was a complete and total upgrade from Runewars, in my opinion. It made me not want to play Runewars anymore. And as soon as Legion was announced, I totally stopped all buying of Runewars stuff, all painting. I like stopped mid-paint. Like out of all, and I usually paint stuff fairly quickly, especially if it's a game I'm really into. I stopped painting Runewars like the day I heard about Legion. I have most of my Runewars stuff. I've got like probably 3 or 4 minis left that I hadn't finished painting, and I won't. You know, I mean, maybe someday. I don't know. But yeah, so like Legion was a complete upgrade to me. Not everybody is a Star Wars fan. Not everybody wanted to play Legion. Not everybody wanted to play more than one game. So I mean, there were still people playing Runewars, but I know I saw a lack of activity for Runewars once Legion was announced, and they were done in such close proximity to each other. Also, that was kind of a shame. Like Runewars wasn't really that bad. I liked the dual dial system that it had too. It just had a lot of really cool things going for it, and the sculpts were good. The minis were good. The armies were fun to paint. Like, and I liked that it was like I could paint them however I wanted. I'm granted you can paint whatever however you want, but you know, I enjoyed Rune War for what it was worth. It was not a bad thing. It was imperfect, and then they perfected it with Legion much too soon for the health of Rune Wars. You know, it's a shame. Now, here's what is still going to happen with Rune Wars. They still are going to sell their existing product. You still can play Rune Wars, but they're ending organized play, which means no more OP kits, no more tournaments, unless of course somebody throws a homebrewed tournament. And even the previous Worlds winners, I guess for the past 2 years of Worlds, those people were supposed to be able to like design a card or whatever it is that they get to do. I'll admit I haven't been following Rune Wars lately, but I don't know. I couldn't even tell you when their last expansion came out, but or was announced or whatever. But apparently the last 2 people to win something for Rune Wars at Worlds aren't going to be able to design a card, and they're going to get some kind of replacement prize, which is interesting. And I feel bad for them because if you like this game well enough to go to Worlds and win, you probably had a lot of invested in this game, a lot of stake, a lot of time, a lot of skill, a lot of hours, spent in this game on a competitive level that you probably really care about a game being supported in organized play. So that's the people who really wanted this game for organized play are the ones that I really feel bad about the most, or especially the people that were hoping for something really big to come out. I admit I was really looking forward to like dragons and really, really big units coming out for Rune Wars, and we never really got massive units for it, and that's kind of sad. Like Legion also, that's another thing that Legion did. Like you had the ATST like right away, you had this massive unit in the launch wave, so it's kind of unfortunate. So yeah, if you're still playing Rune Wars, you can still play Rune Wars. They'll probably still sell stuff, but I don't know how much longer they'll be producing stuff. If you're looking for it on Fantasy Flight's page, it's not going to be under a Rune Wars section. It'll actually be under the Terranoth section, because Terranoth is their own IP. They're not discontinuing the entire world. They'll still maintain control of the world, but it makes me wonder, are they planning on doing something else in the world of Rune Wars for like a tabletop skirmish game? I've said for a while I wouldn't mind seeing like a naval battle game that could like use some of the Armada rule sets and apply that to like an oceanic 6x3 war gaming with boats and dragons and the griffins flying and big boats and small boats and stuff like that. I think that'd be cool, but we'll see. I don't know. So if you guys were playing Rune Wars, I feel really bad for you, and my heart goes out. But they did announce a new game today, and that's Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle Earth, a whole new game. It is going to be an app-driven game that so will play very similar to how Descent would play when you're playing against the computer, or same thing with Imperial Assault. Very, very similar to Imperial Assault. Speaking of dead games, right? I don't know if Imperial Assault is dead. They haven't. When a game is dead, usually they'll come out and announce it. So, like they did with Rune Wars, right? Not dead, but no longer supported, right? So Lord of the Rings is getting Journeys in Middle Earth. I haven't played Mansions of Madness, but I'm told by a lot of people that it looks to closely resemble Mansions of Madness. So if you've ever played Mansions of Madness, maybe this is going to be right up your alley. But this one looks interesting. Some people are not a big fan of an app-integrated game, but I think this one will, if that's something you're looking for, then maybe you'll have a great time with it. It has minis. It's got, campaign-oriented kind of, let's dudes on a map. And we don't really know everything there is to know about it, but it's in the world of Lord of the Rings, and you can do that sort of thing. I don't know if that's really the type of game that I'd be into as much. I do like Lord of the Rings, but I've had mixed emotions on Lord of the Rings tabletop games. Like I haven't been that crazy about any of them that I've seen so far. So we'll see. So a lot of people are wondering, what does this mean for Armada? Well, there's a couple of things. First off, that no game is safe from this is no longer supported or whatever. However, Armada does have another expansion still coming out, so it's unlikely they would announce Armada is no longer supported. I actually have every reason to believe Armada has a bright future ahead, especially with them making the biggest expansion ever. I have talked to people at FFG. I've talked to their press folks, and there is articles and news in the pipe. So it's not like we're being forgotten. The simple truth of the matter is, it's just not all ready yet. That's what it boils down to. They tweeted actually just recently. So if you follow FFG on Twitter, they have tweeted about Armada recently in response to somebody else, and they basically they just said be patient, and I think that's what it boils down to. We need to be a little more patient. Originally, the SSD was slated for the first quarter of 2019. It's possible it may be just outside of that. Instead of maybe that would have had to been the end of March where it comes out. It's possible it may not be out until April. I'm not saying that is what's happening or not. I'm not sure, but we may have to wait until February before we get the Armada articles that we want. We may have to wait until maybe even March before we get the previews and the articles and the attention that we're looking for. That doesn't necessarily mean that this game is forgotten. It's just things take time. And as good of a game as Armada is, I think it's going to be all right if that's the case. Because we know the SSD is coming. They have articles that they want to be able to put out, but they have to be at the right time. They have to be ready. And we really, we only see one side of it. If you're an Armada fan like I am, you're just sitting there like, why can't we get some more news? Why can't we get some more news? And a lot of it could have to do with things going on behind the scenes. Look at I didn't know Runewars wasn't going to be supported anymore. That was kind of a big surprise. I didn't think they would cancel a game like that they own, right? That's their own thing. They don't have to pay royalties to anybody. What's the harm in making a game like that? So, who knows what is going on behind the scenes that is maybe slowing things down or causing them to just take extra care. And I'm going to close with this. Well, two things. I am actually trying to work on getting some more Armada-based news and stuff out for you guys in the next coming weeks. So I'm working on that. I'm being as vague as I can. Maybe some exclusives. Being very vague, but yeah. So there's that. But the good thing is, look at X-Wing 2nd Edition. There's so many little discrepancies. I think X-Wing 2.0 was rushed. I've said this time and time again. I feel like there was a lot of pressure to get X-Wing 2.0 out by a certain time, and that's what happened. And I feel like there were so many mistakes made in the process. So many mistakes made. Conversion kits missing stuff. Some ships not painted properly, like the Y-Wing turret. I've made that before. A lot of missed opportunities in X-Wing 2.0. The big thing is the V symbol that represents the front arc. It means so many different things, and it depends on context. It can mean one thing, it can mean something else, it can mean a third thing that's entirely different from the other two. It all depends on like what the FAQ says, you know, and so it really frustrates me because people, like, there's so many people arguing. I've been wrong about a lot of the interactions in a lot of these cards, and I've had a lot of viewers be like, no, you're totally wrong about this. That doesn't work on here. I'm like, well, the rules say it does. And they're like, no, it's in the FAQ. It doesn't work. I'm like, this new system just came out, and it's already, you know, very confusing, especially to me who covers a lot of games, and over time I'm spreading myself a little bit thinner and thinner and thinner, and so I'm not 100% up to speed on all the latest X-Wing FAQs as much anymore. Back when I used to only cover X-Wing, it was a lot easier to stay up to speed on these things, but you know, it's frustrating, and I feel like they should have done like a fixed front symbol, which means a gun that is locked forward and doesn't ever change. And that would have made so much of a better, you know, impact on the game, because there's so many times like a turret that's pointed forward is a turret arc, but it also counts as a forward arc, right? And then the rules even say that, but there's a symbol for a forward arc. Sometimes applies to an enemy that happens to be out in the space in front of your forward arc. Sometimes it applies to any turret that's pointing forward, and sometimes it applies to a fixed front primary only weapon. You know, and the usage of those are completely different, yet it's like, how are you supposed to know? You know, I guess where I'm building up to here is that if they're taking their extra time with Armada, especially for the Superstar Destroyer, which is a really big deal of a release, if they're taking their time with that, we should really look at the bright side. I know we're frustrated, and I'm there with you because I'm frustrated too, and it's one of the reasons I'm trying to work with FFG to get maybe an exclusive or maybe something like that for you guys. No promises. It's a lot of things are in the works, and not everything that's in the works ends up coming to fruition. But we're working on it, and if that doesn't happen, I'll still have coverage. I'll still, you know, I got that Deep Space Nine thing. I'm still painting that. I'm going to work on some custom scenarios. We're going to come up with more Armada stuff. So there's going to be things to keep us interested, keep us held over. But they have been taking their time with Armada. And I think that shows through all the latest releases that we have gotten. And they haven't really been recent, but all the releases that we've gotten have been extremely well balanced for the most part. There's been very few problems with Armada, and most of the problems we've ever had have been fixed already. Like, the game is in a really, really good state. It's a fantastic game, so I have no problem if they want to take their time. I should say I have much less of a problem. I'm still anxious. I'm like, I'm ready to get that SSD in my hands, on my table, do videos on it, play giant games, take SSD versus SSD versus a space station, 3 ISDs versus an SSD. I want to try all of that stuff. I want to do all of that. And I'm sure a lot of you guys do too, guys and gals. So, for Armada, stay hopeful. For Lord of the Rings, let's stay tuned. And for Runewars, I hope you guys can find something else. I hope you can have fun with what you have already. I hope there's enough stuff out there to keep you enjoying the game. And but if this is, if this was a bad day for you, I understand, and I feel terrible for you guys. But that's about it. All right, don't forget Force FX lightsaber giveaway going on right now. Just be a subscriber and leave a comment. I hope this isn't the end of tabletop skirmish miniatures games from FFG, because they make really good ones. All right, guys, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.